Good morning and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Brunswick, Maine. My name is Michael Cain and I'm a member of our Board of Trustees. Turning first to the announcements, our charity with soul this month is Tedford Housing. Several different ways to donate to Charity with Soul are described in the current issue of the PM. Also, I'm pleased to announce that the formation of our ministerial search team is well underway. You all sent us many recommendations, and the board is reviewing those to assemble a team that is balanced in terms of experience and background. We will be presenting the final slate to you soon for your approval at a congregational meeting in mid-April. Today's service will be led by Reverend Molly Brewer, whose topic is Getting Back to the Future. What can we learn from the pandemic as we look forward to its eventual easing? Reverend Molly, who self-identifies using the gender-neutral fair pronouns, is currently serving remotely as the youth ministry coordinator at the First Unitarian Church of Rochester, New York, and as a facilitator for the UUA Leadership Lab's Retooling for New Realities program. Reverend Molly has also served the UU congregation in Auburn, Maine as their ministerial intern, as a group facilitator with the Church of the Larger Fellowship, and has preached in UU congregations all over the country. Faye lives in Portland with fair husband and 2 cats. We hope you enjoy the service, and thank you for joining us.
Good morning. My name is Bonnie Wood. I was born in Washington, D.C., and grew up in segregated Virginia. Fortunately, when I was 8 years old, my father decided we should join the newly established Mount Vernon Center for All Souls Church. The sermons were delivered by wire by Reverend A. Powell Davies of the All Souls Unitarian Church in Washington, D.C. Several years later, the Mount Vernon Unitarian Church was established and hired its own minister. I attended Sunday school there until I graduated from high school. I am forever grateful for this religious education that shaped my lifelong awareness of social injustices and of my own white privilege, although I certainly didn't have that vocabulary for it at the time. For most of my adult life, I have not been a regular churchgoer. In 1979, my husband Stephen and I moved from California to Presque Isle, Maine. I tried to connect to the congregational church he attended there, but it just wasn't right for me. And then in August of 2017, as we prepared to move from Presque Isle to Brunswick, we were driving down Pleasant Street, and I was delighted to see a UU church. I explored the website and was particularly drawn to the Working for Justice steering group. After we got settled, we both attended a service at UUCB, and I was immediately comfortable and knew that I needed to become part of this congregation. A huge bonus is that Stephen is also committed to the mission of this church. And finally, we have a spiritual community that embraces the difference between the two of us, as well as the diversity of others. When we make our annual pledge to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Brunswick, we know that our money will be spent in ways that are meaningful to us.
There is only one way the future can come. If we trust the world to unfold exactly as it must. The grass must trust the sun to feed it with light. The soil must trust the rain to fall and enrich it. And we move forward together if we can share trust in each other. We have lit our chalice this morning in commemoration of that gift of trust, the flame that needs the match, that needs the hand, the symbol that needs the light of intention to become meaningful, the values that need our commitment in order to flourish in the world. In gratitude for these gifts, we begin our service this morning. The word from our opening hymn, Wo Ya Ya, is a Ghanaian word which means we are going. So imagine for just a moment that Wo Ya Ya, we are going together on a journey. Imagine with me that you are going along a trail in the woods in Maine, somewhere, maybe in Acadia, maybe in Baxter State Park, maybe on Mount Katahdin, and you come across a steep gorge with a river rushing at the bottom. There's only one way to get across. You see a bridge, and it's made of something like this. And if I were in person with you, I would pass this around so that you could feel it. But what this is a braid made of grass. It's kind of bristly and a little bit flexible. What I want to know is what questions would be running through your mind before you set foot on that grass bridge. You might wonder, how can it hold if we're putting our feet on it? Can I trust this bridge to stay steady underneath me? What I would want to know is if the people who made the bridge also walked across it and whether they still use it. We don't have bridges made of grass in Maine, but many were built for hundreds of years in South America by the Inca people who lived in the Andes Mountains. I think a few still exist. Here's how they did it. First, they made fresh bridges once a year. On the appointed day, everybody in the village would gather to begin work. Each person in the village had a special and particular role to play in building the bridge. First, there were people who would gather the grass and sort of pluck it from the ground. Then other people would take the long strands of grass and twist it into long ropes. And then people took those ropes and wove them into thick braids that looked sort of like this. This is a kind of grass that we have here in Maine, but not quite as long or as strong as the Andean grass. Those braids were twisted by other people into long, long cables, and they were about as thick as my or your arm. And then other people would string those cables across the gorge and pull them nice and tight. And finally, there were riggers who would kind of lash the cables together in such a way as to create a footbed to walk on and rails on each side so that everyone could walk across. Each person did their part as best as they could, and they relied on everyone else to do their part well, because every single one of them needed that bridge to safely carry them across the river wherever they needed to go. And I tell you about grass bridges this morning for two reasons. First, it reminds us of how important our small part is when it's part of something big and strong and even as miraculous as a bridge made of grass. I have to say, I think it's pretty miraculous that a bridge can be made of grass, and these bridges could span 60 feet. Imagine the length of a bowling lane. Imagine moving all that way on woven grass and trusting it not to fall through and drop you into the river underneath. And these bridges could hold 5 people at a time, and llamas too. The second reason I share about this morning, we in this church may not be building a bridge across a raging river, but we are building a way toward our future, our shared vision of what's going to come. And I want to go that way. I hope many of you want to go that way too. And if I'm going to go that way, I want to move along a way that feels sure and strong and safe, a way that I know has been built well with everyone doing their part as best they can. So may we all build that way together, like the Inca grass bridge builders.
Hey there, UU Church of Brunswick and First Parish, Portland. We are your youth group with members from both congregations, and we are inviting you to a book discussion group on Sunday, March 28th, on Zoom from 6 to 7 p.m.
The book is called The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas. It's a young adult novel that tells the story of an African-American teenager navigating issues of class, race, and violence.
She witnesses something that will change her life in very important ways. Read the book to find out more and then join us online to talk about it.
Some of the themes might not be suitable for young children, but we would love for the adult members of our two congregations to join with us to talk about this book that erases important issues that we all need to deal with and learn more about.
If you'd like to take part, read the book or listen to it on Audible, or you can even watch the movie. Then sign up to join us online to discuss it on Sunday, March 28th at 6 p.m.
Information about how to sign up to get the Zoom link will be forthcoming from Tobin.
I invite you to join me in the spirit of meditation or prayer as it feels comfortable and right to you. I invite you to breathe in, and as you breathe, feel the ground beneath you. Feel that you are supported by the earth, that it holds your weight, the weight of your body, capably and with strength. As you breathe at your own normal, chosen rhythm, feel yourself settling into your seat, onto the floor, into the chair, in whatever seat you're sitting in. and feel yourself putting down roots into the ground beneath you. Feel those roots spreading out, growing wider and wider as they suck up moisture and water and nutrients from the deep, rich soil that is beneath you. As you gain nourishment and sustenance from this connection with the earth, know too that you are also drawing its power into you. That the power of the earth itself is abiding within your body. Know that you are a being connected with the world around you, irrevocably connected to nature. You are not apart from it, you are a part of it. May we be together in this moment and align ourselves toward the spirit that binds each of us together. Spirit of life, spirit of love, spirit of community, and spirit that builds the bridge beneath us. Spirit that reminds us that even in this time of separateness, we are not entirely separate, we are still together. Remind us that when we reach out, we are still reaching out through you to one another. Let us reach out with our hearts this morning. Be present to us as we do this holy work of joining heart to heart, mind to mind, and in joining each of our bodies with the earth that supports and sustains us all. In this fiery crucible of our heart, our mind, and our spirit, let us bring to light those joys and sorrows that we come bringing with us. All of those joys and those sorrows that are too much to bear alone, too joyous to celebrate alone. All of the births, all of the deaths, all of the illnesses, and all of the milestones past that we carry within us this week. Let us bring them into this shared space, this shared mind, this shared heart. Let us know that we experience these things not alone, but in community with each other. Whatever it is that we are holding and bringing, this community helps us to hold it. Whatever burden we carry with us across this bridge is built strong and sturdy enough to hold you, to hold all that you are. This bridge is enough. You are enough. Each of us in this moment has done enough to help us hold together. In this truth, we relax into that knowledge. In gratitude for one another, we relax into this pool of grace. Amen. Blessed be.
There will be better days. 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 Let the wave wash there will be better days. There will be better days. There will be better days. I am there will be better days. There will be better days. There will be better days. better days. There will be 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 better days. Let the wave wash over me. There will be better days. There will be better days. Let the wave wash over me. There will be better days. There will be better days. I am ready. There will be better days. There will be better days. Let the wave wash over me. There will be better days. There will be better days. Let the wave wash over me. There will be better days. There will be better days. Let the wave wash over me. There will be better days. There will be better days. I am ready and done. There will be better days. Let the wave wash over me. There will be better days. 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 There will be better days.
How the Light Comes, the words of Jan Richardson. I cannot tell you how the light comes. What I know is that it is more ancient than imagining, that it travels across an astounding expanse to reach us, that it loves searching out what is hidden, what is lost, what is forgotten or in peril or in pain, that it has a fondness for the body, for finding its way toward flesh, for tracing the edges of form, for shining forth from the eye, the hand, the heart. I cannot tell you how the light comes, but that it does, that it will, that it works its way into the deepest dark that enfolds you, though it may seem long ages in coming, or arrive in a shape you did not foresee. And so may we this day turn ourselves toward it. May we lift our faces to let it find us. May we bend our bodies to follow the arc it makes. May we open and open more and open still to the blessed light that comes.
We've reached the part of the service where we are going to be passing the plate down the pews and hand it to the person behind you, and then they'll hand it down to the next pew, and it'll go to the usher in the middle and go down and back again. Except we can't do that because we're not in person. It's been one of the hardest things this last year, not seeing everyone. But there's a really important work that we do, which is our Charities with Soul. When that plate goes around and gets heaped up and Jim takes it up to the front and counts it after the services, half of that money goes into local charities, helping with homelessness, helping with people who aren't getting enough to eat, helping people who need medical care. And that's something that we need now more than ever. But that way that we've been doing it has changed. So what we're doing instead is this. You can text to donate. Now, I'm going to confess that in spite of all the work that I've been doing on this, it was only just recently that I finally was like, I think I got to do that. I got to do the texting thing. There was something about it I was worried about. Like maybe this was going to be more complicated, or it was going to take me a long time to do, or it was going to ask me for all sorts of personal information, or it's super easy. So I'm just going to do it right now before I play the song for the offering. So I'm going to go into my phone. I'm just going to start a new text message. I'm going to look at that number to 855 962 0440. Okay, I am sending a new message to that number, and my message is just going to be, I'm going to say 10. I'm going to send $10. And then I'm going to push send, and that just disappears, and it goes off, and very quickly, just like that, I get a message back that says, thank you for donating $10 to Unitarian Universalist Church of Brunswick. Text repeat to make this recurring or refund. Now, I've done this before. That's why I got that message. The first time I did it, I got a message that said, you're almost done. Go to, and there's just a little website there, blah, 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 to complete your donation. And if you push that link, it takes you to a secure location, and you can enter in your credit card information and complete your transaction. So that's all you have to do. So why don't you just take a minute to do that, and I, in the meantime, will play you a song. Here comes the sun, here comes the sun, and I say it's alright. Little darling, it's been a long, cold, lonely winter. Little darling, it seems like years since it's been here. Here comes the sun, here comes the sun, and I say it's alright. Little darling, the smile's returning to the faces. Little darling, it seems like years since it's been here. Here comes the sun, here comes the sun, and I say it's alright. It's alright. Sun, 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 here it comes. Sun, 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 here it comes. Little darling, I feel that ice is slowly melting. Little darling, it seems like years since it's been clear. Here comes the sun, here comes the sun, and I say it's alright. It's alright.
Just over 1 year ago, Horror stories were emerging about a new respiratory coronavirus that had made its way to parts of California and Washington state after shutting down huge swaths of Eastern and Southeast Asia. Phrases like community spread and flattening the curve suddenly became part of our national lexicon, and the CDC, as of a year ago, had just declared COVID-19 a global pandemic, and the US had named it a national emergency. Since then, many of us are still here, and many more of us, over 520,000 of us, are not. In a lot of ways, the year we've spent since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic has felt like a lost year. It was like we were collectively shunted into a timeline none of us asked for or wanted. And small acts of poor preparation and early but understandable lack of caution stateside ended up spiraling together to create the transformed world we now live in. Sometimes I find myself thinking of the Back to the Future movies. Don't worry, if you haven't seen them recently or possibly even ever, you don't need to know them well for this, but I'll unpack it just a little bit so you can see where I'm coming from. Back to the Future, which came out in 1985, is simultaneously charming and a little problematic, like a lot of 1980s movies are. And like many middle-class white millennials and Gen Xers, I grew up watching it and its sequels. In the movies, you have your main character, a suburban teenager named Marty, played by Michael J. Fox. He travels 30 years into the past aboard a time machine built by his eccentric scientist neighbor, Doc Brown. The time machine is a modified DeLorean sports car that runs on plutonium and needs to be traveling at a speed of 88 miles per hour in order to travel through time. During his trip to the past, the DeLorean loses power, and Marty needs to find the 30 years younger Doc Brown to fix the machine and send Marty back to the future, which is to say, his present. And when I think about 1 year ago, I think about how frozen in time I feel in a lot of ways. The work goes on, but if you're like me and haven't felt able to think broadly about the future in a long time, you aren't alone. What we're living through right now is a constant reminder of grief and sadness, and the pain of that is real. The pain of isolation is real. So is the injury in feeling over and over again as if our lives and needs are subject to the random whims of those with power, influence, and money. And our brains and bodies aren't built to live like this for long, to endure the complicated loss of a sense of future and of our communities all at once. So every now and then, when I think about this lost year, I feel a little bit like Marty McFly, trapped in the past with a powered down DeLorean, trying to get back to the future. The future that I remember envisioning from the vantage point of a little more than a year ago was an expansive, if somewhat daunting in its scope, one. Outside of our faith, the US was looking ahead to a presidential election that would be fraught and hard-won and emotionally difficult, no matter the winner. The global community was at last beginning to reckon with the specter of climate change, and within our faith, something even more exciting was happening. Possibilities were stirring. The Unitarian Universalist Association's Commission on Institutional Change was leading a charge to investigate the tools that marginalized communities have long drawn upon to get themselves free. Among these tools were an inclusive and liberative theology and ongoing efforts to understand how our institutions and structures can unintentionally lift up some groups of people at the expense of the wholeness of others. To use these tools, the Commission proposed, would not be an act of checking our intellect at the door, but of smartly and strategically using skillful means to accomplish our goals of solidarity and interconnected beloved community. That future of beloved community was a fantastic place to imagine and envision. But global events had other plans last year. Suddenly, our churches, congregations, and fellowships were scrambling to figure out how to do this community thing without the benefit of being together in person. And through this hard year, we did it somehow. Many, many of us have experienced losses that didn't need to happen. This is true. And at the same time, our churches have not disappeared or closed en masse. We continue to be here for one another, moving each other along through this stuck timeline. Our DeLorean time machine might not be functional just yet, but the Doc Browns of the scientific world have been carefully rebuilding the flux capacitor, the fictional movie magic MacGuffin that makes time travel work, by creating not just one, but multiple different vaccines in a hugely accelerated time frame. None of us are sitting here twiddling our thumbs while we wait to get back to our normal lives. The scientific community, the healthcare community, religious communities, marginalized communities are all working tirelessly to keep ourselves and others from losing our mooring in this vast, uncharted water. As one of my colleagues based in Texas told me when the power outages and water pipe breakage swept across Texan urban areas just a couple of weeks ago, it wasn't private enterprise that came to the rescue, but community mutual aid and local buy-nothing groups. When science, medicine, spiritual community, and mutual aid all work as they should, they create the net of safety into which we can fall. Echoing the words of Jan Richardson's poem, they love searching out what is hidden, what is lost, what is forgotten or in peril or in pain, with great fondness and tenderness. One thing that all of these communities have in common is that they are capable of moving at the magical speed of trust. And like that elusive 88 miles per hour the DeLorean needs to rocket into the future, the speed of trust is capable of carrying us to great places. Black activist and thinker Adrienne Marie Brown talks about the speed of trust in her book Emergent Strategy, which has been used in many social justice communities, including parts of our UUA, as a guidebook for creating change that's capable of lasting and enduring. Brown articulates this core principle in her work by writing, "Focus on critical connections more than critical mass. Build resilience by building the relationships." When we do this tender, vulnerable work of shoring one another up in the aftermath of this great and ongoing tragedy, we can't rush ahead. We need to abide with one another, to be present and do the work of showing up for one another. We build trust by coming to one another with vulnerability and authenticity, and the strength and depth of our relationships grows. When tested, it springs back and rebuilds. Although the author's background is very different from Brown's, we see similar patterns in the work of Robin Wall Kimmerer, a Potawatomi indigenous botanist, who asserts that all flourishing is mutual. Both Kimmerer and Brown look to the natural world to guide their thinking and their planning. The mycelial networks of mushrooms, the traditional ways of harvesting sweetgrass, and the fractal patterns of fern leaves teach them both that we are inescapably part of this network of mutuality and connection. That what befalls one of us befalls us all, and to trust one another with our vulnerabilities is the only way forward, even when we can't see the path. I understand if you are not feeling ready to trust just now. Much about this last year has felt like betrayal. Each friend we learn has fallen victim to conspiracy theories. Each family member we discover refuses to wear a mask around other people comes as a new sadness, eroding our trust in those around us. Some of us have never had good reason to trust a scientific and medical establishment that treats us as liabilities or acceptable casualties. These are real hurts that don't go away easily. And still, we people of faith come together week after week, cross-country communities of like hearts. If during this time we allow our connections to each other to languish and fade, we'll have a lot of work to do before we can get back to laying the foundations of the future. But on the other hand, if we persevere, if we keep hewing to one another and coming back to building beloved community together, no matter where we are, if we keep taking measures to keep ourselves and one another safe, we will still have reason to trust when we come out the other side, which we will. In the last few moments of Back to the Future, when Marty has successfully made it back to 1985, his present, the stinger comes when Doc Brown arrives at his door, insisting that Marty and his girlfriend hop in the DeLorean to travel 30 years into the future to solve an urgent problem. As they drive off, Marty worries aloud that they won't have enough road to speed up to the necessary 88 miles an hour. Doc looks at him kind of slyly and says, with a great touch of drama, as the DeLorean lifts off the ground and flies into the sky, "Roads. Where we're going, we don't need roads." This great and blessed light that we are finally beginning to see at the end of the tunnel is showing up for some in the form of a vaccine that may at last allow us to see each other in person again. Already, I'm beginning to see pictures online of families who are visiting each other for the first time in a year. But still, for many of us, we don't know when this relief will come or how long it will take our communities to finally look like normal, like we're used to. And even more crucially, we have no map of the territory ahead of us, no well-worn path to follow, only the shared commitments of trust and mutuality that are leading us forward into better days. I cannot tell you how the light comes, only that it does, and it will. We move forward trying to heal the hurts of the past, those done to ourselves and to others. We move ahead into the lakes, the woods, an unknown wilderness. In cities, we move not toward privatizing and hoarding and gerrymandering, but toward each other, toward what we can build together and what reminds us of our history and teaches us the great and terrible things we can learn from this fallow time. We move across bridges woven of faith that those we gather around us are doing their part. And when the map ends, we venture there too. We move at the magical and catalyzing speed of trust, closer to one another like tightly braided strands of grass, beckoning each other back into the future. Only one thing is certain. Where we're going, and with trust and community on our side, we won't need roads.
Hearts and spirits, think to
As we extinguish our chalice and close our service this morning, may we remember that we can never extinguish the fire of our commitment or the flame of truth. As we bend our bodies toward this sunshine that comes, even if we can't yet see it, let us rest in the assurance that it does come, that it will come, and that it is our shared trust, community, and covenant that makes it so. Amen, and blessed be.